Fight fans, buckle up. After a year of false starts, injuries, and a full-on cancellation, Michael Chandler never closed the McGregor tab. He kept his career active, inking back-to-back fights with Charles Oliveira and Paddy Pimblett, but left space in the notebook labeled "If Conor Returns." Now the board finally looks different, with the UFC preparing a one-off White House event in 2026 and Dana White acknowledging he's taking McGregor's comeback seriously. Chandler believes the unfinished business from their TUF season lands on the biggest stage possible.
Would the ideal opponent for that one be the guy you've wanted to fight for a long time and who knows, might be the president of Ireland by that time?
Yeah, could be the president of Ireland, which would be very, very ironic. Obviously, I'm kind of it's definitely the fight that I want. Everybody knows that's the fight that I want. I have said publicly that's the fight that I want, but I'm also the guy who's not going to wait for that fight.
Chandler didn't hedge. We're closer now than we ever have been. In my heart of hearts, I think I'm fighting Conor McGregor at the White House. And that makes a ton of sense for a multitude of reasons. He's clear on priorities, too. First and foremost, I want the White House. Ideally, if it becomes Conor, that would be awesome. We have unfinished business. He points to McGregor's recent social posts, AI poster, public callouts, as proof the interest isn't just rumor cycle noise. For matchmakers, Chandler is the turnkey option on a historic card. Guaranteed action, clean microphone, dependable media lift. If McGregor's medicals, licensing, and timelines line up, you have a headliner that sells itself. If they don't, Chandler's willingness to pivot keeps the slot hot without losing momentum. If the White House card locks, who should Chandler face? McGregor, Pimblett, or Oliveira? Drop your pick, then subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the next domino. Right after the Chandler chatter comes the governor, Dana White's filter for the White House lineup. He didn't leave room for ambiguity. On Jon Jones, he said plainly, Jones is not in consideration. The event requires people the UFC can count on, and that bar isn't met. On Conor McGregor, interest is real and conversations are live, but nothing promised.
That's great.
So you were saying, John, you have Jon Jones and Aspinall confirmed. That's what you were saying before you started texting. How much did that cost?
Yeah.
Dude, what's going on with that fight? We just had Aspinall on.
Jon Jones, since, retiring and then coming back, has made it clear I want to do this, and he sent me a text apologizing and all that stuff, but I need people that I can seriously rely on for this one. People talk shit about Conor. I'm telling you, I've been in the fucking trenches with Conor. Conor is a guy that has fought injured. Conor is a guy that a fighter has fallen out and we slid in a stylistically bad matchup for him. He doesn't care. He literally will fight anybody.
But does he care enough to actually make a fight right now? Like, is he actually, when's the last time he fought? It's been,
he and I have been talking nonstop, and he's like, I'm dead serious. I want this. I'm training. I'm back in the pool. I'm doing all the shit. So we'll see. As we still got a long way to go. We still got a long way to go till February, till we start making this card. So we'll see how it plays out. And
the same reliability standard applies. White even acknowledged outreach and apologies behind the scenes, but stressed this show's stakes are unique. Historic venue, zero tolerance for late turbulence. Bottom line for your lower third, White House, reliability greater than star power. Read it as policy, not PR. Anyone on that bill will be locked, licensed, and media-ready weeks in advance. On The Fighter versus the Writer, Matt Brown fired a warning flare about importing an MMA-style, single-promoter system into boxing. His thesis, when one entity controls rankings, titles, and opportunity, the leverage shifts away from fighters and toward the promoter.
The big issue is what they've done with the UFC is they've monopolized the sport. And what that creates is the reason that Dana doesn't do those interviews is because he controls the media, right? That's why no one goes to a UFC as a media and asks hard questions. They're all softball questions, right? They're the same questions over and over again. So they control the media and they have a monopoly on the sport. And what happens is this is why you see guys what was it, a couple weeks ago when Pratis was like begging for his friend to get a shot in the UFC, you know, and you see guys like me, I'm guilty of it, where we're like, bro, can I get that $50,000 bonus, man? Please, master. And that's not the way it's supposed to work, right? And the reason that it doesn't work that way in boxing, you've never heard a single boxer in your lifetime or my lifetime beg the promoter for anything, right? Because of a thing called the Ollie Act, which is what the UFC is trying to revise, which actually means destroy. And that's, it's not going to be a good thing. People think it's going to be a good thing, but when you have a single entity controlling rankings, controlling titles, that's not a good thing for boxing. When Dana said this is not a career, this is an opportunity, and that is so wrong. Like looking back on that, I'm like, that is so fucking wrong, bro. So basically what he's saying is, you know, you have the opportunity to use, you know, the UFC brand that we're going to give you to push yourself. And I mean, and I can't hate on it. Like it created opportunity for me, right? Like I'm sitting here doing this podcast because I was a UFC fighter, not because I'm the most interesting man in the world, right? Like that's I get that. But it should be able to be a career. Like you should be able to make retirement money if you're that good of a fighter. Like the whole, Dana also uses this where he says, you know, you eat what you kill. Like that is so false. Like you eat what we give you. Right? If Conor goes out and sells 5 million pay-per-views, like he doesn't get what he killed, right? He promotes the shit out of it, does all the media. He doesn't get what he killed. He gets what the UFC says you can have, which might be $10 million, while the UFC takes $100 million, right? Yeah. So how is that eating what you kill? That's Dana eating what you kill.
He contrasted MMA clips of athletes pleading for post-fight bonuses or roster shots with boxing's long-standing protection under the Alley Act. A sobering headline. Hawaii Island police confirmed the 5th arrest of BJ Penn this year, this time for violating a court order for protection involving his mother. Per the police release, at 4:03 p.m., Monday in Hilo, officers responded to a reported violation, determined Penn had entered property in breach of the order, arrested him without incident, and charged him Tuesday. Bail was set at $2,000, later posted. Earlier this year, Penn was twice arrested on domestic abuse allegations and twice more for restraining order violations. A judge recently extended the order for a full year, requiring no contact and a 100-yard distance from the protected residence. Stay factual on delivery, date, charge, arrest, bail. It's a difficult chapter for a Hall of Fame resume. The broadcast job is clarity, not color. The crossover spectacle has a new home. Most Valuable Promotions announced Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis will take place at Kaseya Center, Miami on November 14. The fight was initially pointed at Atlanta, but the Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission signaled the exhibition was unlikely to be approved due to the significant weight disparity. A waiver discussion had been slated for a GAEC meeting. MVP pulled the request and shifted south. Why Miami makes sense for an exhibition, a commission pathway that can sanction special rule showcases, a celebrity-friendly market, and an arena with deep experience staging boxing/MMA. The narrative friction won't vanish. The weight gap is still the lead, but the logistics are concrete now. City, date, building. On screen, expect a rules graphic to avoid confusion, rounds, glove size, knockdown protocol, stoppage authority. So both casuals and hardcores know exactly what's being contested. That's the tape. Chandler circling the most historic stage the UFC has ever booked. Dana drawing a bright line between star power and certainty. Matt Brown pushing the Alley Act back into the center of the room. BJ Penn's legal troubles laid out without spin. And Paul versus Tank rerouted to a city built for show nights. If you want fight news without fluff and with receipts, subscribe, hit the bell, and sound off. Does Chandler finally get McGregor at the White House? Or should the UFC pivot? And will Miami embrace Paul versus Tank? Or is the weight gap a bridge too far? Your takes, your card, let's build it.